Hello and welcome to the Dungeon. I'm your host Rob. In today's video we're going to be taking a look at combining the Bard with the Fighter in order to make kind of that melee caster hybrid type of character. Now if you've heard my videos before, I've probably mentioned that I think that the charisma casters in general tend to multiclass very well together. But if you look at those videos, you'll see that I combined Paladin and Warlock, Paladin and Sorcerer, and Warlock and Sorcerer. But we don't actually have Bard. Now, it's not that I don't think Bard multiclasses very well. It's just that if I'm looking to make that melee caster type of hybrid, usually the Bard is actually a pure caster with a couple of subclasses that give you some melee options, compared to the Paladin, who is a melee character with a few spellcasting options. And if I want to add a bunch of melee, the Paladin just generally does it better, as you would expect for a pure melee character. Or mostly melee character, a pure martial character. Paladin's going to give me the option of wearing heavy armor. It's going to give me some smites. It's going to give me things like my aura of protection and potentially a class aura at level 7. It's going to give me extra attack as a class feature, not as a subclass feature, only available in a couple of cases. It's also going to give me some specific matchups that I really like say combining with Warlock, where now I can get those spell slots back on a short rest and I can smite even more. Or with the Sorcerer, where I could use a bunch of low level spell slots as smites and then convert sorcery points into spell slots and recharge those low level slots all over again and use them for more smites. So the Bard, while it's an excellent class and it has a lot to offer, it doesn't fit this particular role as well as the Paladin. But that's why I like to combine Bard with Fighter, because now we're not trying to use the Bard, which is, as I said, primarily a caster. We're not trying to force it to fit into a melee type of role just because we went with Valor or College of Swords. Instead, we're going to take the Fighter aspects and emphasize those, and then use the Bard as more of the pure caster mix. And there's actually a ton of different ways that we can do this. There's so many combinations I can't even really cover them all. But I do have a couple general rules. Number one is that I'm probably going to start Fighter in almost every case. This is going to give me a few more hit points at level 1. It's going to give me the option of wearing heavy armor if I want to. And it's also going to give me some fighting styles, which I may not have available in other cases. And it's going to give me, most importantly, proficiency on Constitution saving throws, which is going to give me proficiency on concentration saves. And that's kind of a big deal. And then my second general rule is that since extra attack from different classes do not stack, I'm only going to want either extra attack from Fighter or extra attack from Bard, in which case if I went with College of Valor or College of Swords, then I only want a few Fighter levels, because there's no point going to level 5 and not getting anything at all out of it. So I'm only looking at like 1, 2, 3 Fighters levels, maybe 4 if I want the extra ability score increase. The other rule, and then if I want to get my extra attack, but I want to go say Whisper or College of Lore, then I'm probably going to want more Fighter levels. So that's kind of the breakdown I'm looking at. There are advantages and disadvantages to each, namely that having, if I go College of Valor or College of Swords, I don't need as many Fighter levels, which means my spell casting is going to be delayed less, and I'm still going to have extra attack. I'm just going to add in some, like, say, Battle Master maneuvers or something like that. College of Whispers and College of Lore are going to require that I either A, don't get extra attack, which is a decent option, to be honest. You could just not grab extra attack, or it means that I'm going to have to go high level Fighter. But that's okay too. And I looked at the different Fighter subclasses and which ones brought the most. And honestly, I just felt like the 3 Player's Handbook ones were better. I know a lot of people think Champion is the worst Fighter subclass, but I would actually argue that it's the Purple Dragon Knight. I think Purple Dragon Knight is worse than the Champion. And I especially think that the Champion multiclasses very well in specific builds. The ability to double up your crit chance is really good if you're rolling a lot of dice all the time, or very often, or control. Like maybe you've got the ability to oh, hey, I got a crit, I'm just going to drop down a smite now, type of ability, right? That kind of thing. And with Bardic Inspiration, you kind of get that ability, at least in some cases. So Champion's going to work fairly well. Battle Master is just awesome, obviously, and grabbing a bunch of maneuvers gives you a lot more flexibility as to what your character can do. And Bards are already very good at a lot of different things, and just adding a bit more to that just makes it even better. And then the Eldritch Knight gives you some spell options. And even though it's only a 1/3 caster, that is better than the Champion or the Battle Master, which are 0 caster. So, it's not going to delay your progression as much. And it gives you access to some really nice spells. Like maybe you wanted a Booming Blade or a Green Flame Blade. Maybe you wanted Find Familiar or Shield. But the idea of being primarily a bard who's wearing heavy plate, just full plate mail with a shield, but you're smacking guys with your sword like crazy, you're casting a shield spell, you've got a familiar, you can do a lot with a character like that. And honestly, it's just pretty awesome. So those are going to be the main ones that we're going to look at. I'll start with the martial bards because there's only the two, and that's Valor and College of Swords. And both of these have a little bit of redundancy. So this is why I say it's a pretty even mix. If I go with the caster heavy bard subclasses, I have to take more fighter levels or lose out on second attack. If I go with these ones, I'm doubling up on proficiency, which feels a little bad, but it's not the end of the world. In both cases, your bonus proficiency is just going to give you armor and shields, which are redundant with the fighter, and weapon choices, which are redundant with the fighter. But Valor is also going to give us combat inspiration. And this is where we can use a bardic inspiration, roll that die, and add that to our damage. It's not bad. I could see an argument for Champion, where if you get a crit, you're doubling up those inspiration die now. But honestly, I think Battle Master's a better fit for the College of Valor, because you could be using those to like maneuvers and double up those die as well. Not on a crit, but just like adding your inspiration die to a combat maneuver. And then it's a lot more like triggerable on demand. However, I will say that if you're trying to manage a bunch of superiority die, and you're trying to manage your spell slots, and you're trying to manage a bunch of bardic inspiration, that could be a lot to keep track of. And the more things you have to keep track of, I don't care if you're a veteran player or not, the more chances there are to just forget things and miss things and to mismanage your character in small ways. And that can add up. So if you want to just go the simple route, Champion is fine, but I do think Battle Master is a little better. At level 6, you're going to get extra attack. At level 14, you get Battle Magic. And I actually think Battle Magic is amazing. It's very similar to what the Eldritch Knight gets at high level, where you cast a spell and then you can make a bonus action melee attack. The Bard gets the same thing, but I think the Bard ability is better. Partly because the Eldritch Knight, you have very low level spells and you're mostly limited to 2 schools of magic. The Bard, you could be casting a 6th or 7th level spell on one guy and then smack on another guy with your sword. So it's basically just an extra attack on top of your high level spell. The other thing is that with the Eldritch Knight, I feel like there's a lot more of a trade-off, because by the time you get this ability, you're already making 3 attacks a round. You're not that far from 20 realistically, where you can be making 4 attacks a round. And if you're going to cast a low-level spell, instead of making 3 or 4 attacks a round, and yeah, you get a bonus action attack, but you're still obviously several attacks behind. That's not to say that there aren't circumstances where that's a good play, but it's a lot more of a sacrifice compared to the Bard, who's like, well, I was going to cast a high-level spell anyway, and now I just get to make a melee attack on top of it. I feel like the Bard is giving up a lot less in that case. And honestly, Battle Magic is one of the most compelling reasons to go with a Valor Bard, in my opinion. If your campaign is going to go to high level, Battle Magic is awesome. Now, it's going to have to go to very high level in your case, because you're going to have a few fighter levels in there, meaning you're going to get this ability even later, probably. But, it's still really good. So, College of Swords. What does that give us? Well, again, it gives us some bonus proficiencies, which are useless. It's going to give us a fighting style, though, either dueling or 2-weapon fighting. So, only 2 choices. And obviously, if you're going with a fighting style from your fighter, don't take these choices, because you're going to get it from Bard as well. It doesn't stack. And you're probably going to have to go defensive. I think you could make a dex-based character, though, who goes 2-weapon fighting with the Bard, and then picks up like the archery fighting style from the fighter. And then you can even pick up a spell like Swift Quiver at high level. And then you've got somebody who can fight in melee combat, they can use a bow, they can cast spells, you can buff, you can heal, you can debuff, you can really kind of do it all. And that does make a pretty powerful mix, but it also means you're probably not going to excel in any one of those specific areas. So, bear that in mind. Most importantly, though, at level 3, you're going to get blade flourishes. Whenever you take the attack action on your turn, you get an extra 10 feet of movement added to your base movement speed, which is pretty nice. And you can do one of 3 options with the blade flourish. All of them will use the superiority die. All of them will add that die worth of damage to the target. But defensive flourish, you roll that die, add the damage to your attack roll. But whatever you rolled on your inspiration die also gets added to your armor class until the start of your next turn. I find this to be very good with the champion, because the ability to get a crit here, double my crit chance, means I can also double up the bonus of my armor class. So if you roll like a 4 or 5, getting an extra 4 or 5 armor class is really good. But adding 8 or 9 or 10 to your armor class is insane. And it just means you're basically immune to getting any hits at all until the start of your next turn. And that can be extremely powerful. And then doubling the damage up is also good, right? Slashing Flourish, I find this to be the weakest of the 3. You just do extra damage to another target, and it's only your inspiration die you rolled. So if I roll a 5 on my inspiration die, the main target I hit takes an extra 5, and I can choose to do that 5 damage to another target within 5 feet of me. Again, maybe you get a crit and you get to double that up. That's okay, but I don't think it's spectacular. Mobile Flourish, you can push the target back 5 feet plus the number you rolled on your inspiration die, and then you can use your reaction to move up to your movement, which, remember, has been increased by 10 feet till the end of the round because you're using a flourish. And you can use your reaction to move up to your movement within 5 feet of the creature in an unoccupied space. Now this one's really good as well with the champion, because you could potentially be doubling up the amount of pushback you get quite often. And in specific combinations with, like, say, a teammate using like a wall of fire or a hunger of Hadar or even a cloud of daggers, it means that somebody could be taking a bunch of damage, they get out of that area, and then you're like, not so fast, and you just push them back in where they take even more damage, and allows those type of persistent damage effects to be even more powerful. At level 6, you're going to get extra attack again, and then at level 14, you're going to get your Master's Flourish, which is that you can use a d6 instead of an inspiration die. So whenever you use a Blade Flourish, instead of using an inspiration, you can roll a d6. It's actually pretty good, because it means that you're not going to be chewing up your inspiration die. If you needed a big roll, you still use your Bardic Inspiration. But otherwise, maybe you just want a defensive flourish once a round, every round essentially. And nothing wrong with adding an extra, 3 or 4 armor to your armor class on average every single round of combat. So those are the martial ones. If we take a look at the other ones, I found that like Glamour and some of the others, they were better in other roles. Glamour is obviously going to be a better party face, whereas I found that College of Whispers and College of Lore both mixed with Bard quite well. So if we take a look at College of Lore specifically, at level 3 you're going to get Cutting Words. This is where you can decrease the attack, ability check, or damage roll of an opponent. In general, I'm going to go with the attack or ability check. Reducing damage tends to be a lot less efficient. You can just be turning attacks into misses and negating the damage entirely. It's pretty good, obviously. Level 6, you're going to get additional magical secrets. And I did a Bard video where I talked about magical secrets. So all the usual magical secrets are going to be great choices. But I want to specifically mention one that might not occur to people, which is Crusader's Mantle from the Paladin spell list. Because if you're going to be up front meleeing lots of guys, and maybe you have a melee heavy party, getting that extra d4 added to all your attacks and all their attacks could really add up. You're making 2 attacks a round, why not? And maybe your action surge. Now that's getting applied to like 4 attacks in the round, plus your allies' attacks. Not saying that it's a slam dunk choice and you forget counterspell, I'll take this. I'm not saying that. I'm just throwing that out there as a possibility. Counterspell is also a great chance to take, or a great option to take. And maybe take that with your other one. You're also going to get a level 14 Peerless Skill, where you can add your Bardic Inspiration to an ability check. I like this in combination with certain feats, specifically Shield Master, and if you want to be a grappler, then that as well. because with you can take expertise on like athletics and then use a shield master feat, knock guys prone, and because you've got double your proficiency bonus, maybe you have a strength bonus, maybe you don't. You don't even need strength. That's the joy of this. And then with Peerless Skill, you're just knocking things prone, and then you and all your buddies are able to attack with advantage, assuming that they're up front and close. All your ranged buddies are attacking with disadvantage, so they're probably going to be kind of upset with you. But, you know, use with discretion. As far as College of Whispers, really, like most of their abilities aren't going to be very good in this mix. But you do get one at level 3 called Psychic Blades. And this is where you use a weapon attack. You can expend one use of your Bardic Inspiration to deal an extra 2d6 psychic damage to that target. You can only do so once per round on your turn. The psychic damage increases when you reach certain levels in this class, going to 3d6 at level 5, 5d6 at level 10, and 8d6 at 15th level. This is way more damage with your Bardic Inspiration than any of the other Bardic Inspiration abilities. It's way more than the Blade Flourish. It's way more than the Combat Inspiration and the Valor Bard. This is just a way better use of doing your damage. And I think that Champion is a very strong contender here, because you can essentially be like a rogue where you're just, you know, attacking once or twice, but just doing a truckload of damage with that hit. And if you get a crit, you're like, oh, I think I'm going to use my inspiration die of 8d6. Oh wait, I had a crit, 16d6 psychic damage applied to that target. It's very good. Now, like I said, it's not the Words of Terror and Mantle of Whispers and Shadow Lore aren't also all great abilities, but they don't really do anything for increasing our combat effectiveness. But one of the joys of this class is that we're not just a combat character. We are still a bard. We still have all the regular bard abilities. So I really like the College of Whispers if I'm going to be taking either a bunch of fighter levels, or maybe I just want to take a couple fighter levels and I'm going to pick up like, say, like Green Flame Blade or Booming Blade, take like the Magic Initiate feat, or even, I mean, it hurts to use that as a magical secret, but you know, whatever, right? If I want to just be like one big attack and do as much damage as possible, and then take like 3 levels of Champion, for example, and double my chances of getting a crit and doubling up all that damage, that is a lot of damage. You're like out damaging rogues by a significant amount while also having access to 9th level spells potentially. So you know, and you've got Action Surge. So you know, not the worst thing in the world. As far as feats, obviously I've already mentioned Shield Master and Grappler, both of which are pretty good. Tavern Brawler is not a bad option either. If you're going to be grappling a lot, why not smoke guys with your shield or with a tankard or whatever else? It's fun if nothing else, and you know, fun's what the game should be. As always, alerts are a great choice. Being able to cast, you know, a hypnotic pattern and lock all the enemies down before they move is amazing. So those are going to be my pretty standard choices. I don't think you need Warcasters much on this character, because we're going to start with a 1-level fighter and have the proficiency on our Constitution saving throws. That helps to overcome a lot. And in general, feats could be a little hard to come by on this type of character because we're multi-classing. Now, maybe we take 6 levels of fighter, in which case it's not a problem at all. We have to have an extra feat. But, you know, in general, multi-classing is going to cut down on the amount of feats we have. So anyways, those are my thoughts on the class. I actually think that it's an excellent, like, Gish style of play. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. Ring the bell for notifications. And as I always say, most enjoyably, leave me your comments. I promise to read every one. I might not have time to comment on them all, but I will read them. And I love hearing other people's stories about how they've done similar things, or maybe I've inspired them to try something new, or whatever. So those are my thoughts on the class. I think we're going to wrap the video up there, and I will see you next time in the dungeon.